No matter where the fuck I am, I'm here. I'm here, there, and everywhere.
No matter who you are or what you've done, God forgives everybody.
I ain't everybody, Pastor. When you're grown up and you don't pay your bills.
South Jamaica, Queens, 1991. Night. The streets of South Jamaica do not announce what they are about to do. This is one of the first things you learn in this world, that the violence, when it comes, does not come with a warning. It comes in the middle of an ordinary moment, in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of a transaction on a corner that has seen 1,000 transactions and will see 1,000 more. The violence is not the exception to the rhythm of these streets. It is threaded through the rhythm so completely that the rhythm could not exist without it. Episode 4 of the 5th and final season of this series opens in that rhythm. The block is moving. Product is moving. Money is moving. The operation that has been built between the young man at the center of this story and the South Side legend he has aligned himself with is functioning with the kind of precision that only comes from two people who understand each other at the level of what they are actually doing, not what they say they are doing, not what they present to the world, but the real calculation underneath all of it. The operation works because both of them need it to work. It works because the alternative, operating alone, the way the young man was operating before the alliance, is less profitable and less protected than what they have built together. But this episode is where the violence that has been gathering in the margins of the last 3 episodes, in the set of Stefano's jaw, in the silence of a young man receiving an instruction he has not yet visibly responded to, in the simmering resentment of a man who has been slowly displaced from the position he believed was his, begins to move from the margins to the center. The title of the episode is a chess reference. It is not a coincidence. Everything happening in South Jamaica right now is a chess game. The difference is that none of the players agree on who the pieces are. Into Raquel's Manhattan operation. Morning. She built something new in the time she was supposed to be finished. This is the essential fact of Raquel Thomas that Season 5 keeps returning to, that her intelligence is not the intelligence of someone who fights for what she has. It is the intelligence of someone who finds what is available in whatever situation she has been placed in and builds from that. Stefano pushed her out of Queens. She found Manhattan. Stefano tried to humiliate her. She turned the humiliation into leverage. The partnership with Flossie is not just a business arrangement. It is a demonstration. It is Raquel Thomas standing in the space of her own displacement and saying, without saying anything, "Watch what I do with what you left me." The Manhattan operation is running. The women Flossie recruited are running the network. Marvin is there, which is both a strength and a source of the low-grade anxiety that Marvin always produces. His capability is not in question, but his judgment has been the wild card in this family's operation since the first season. And judgment matters more than capability. When you are operating in territory that is not yours yet, territory where the wrong move will be noticed and responded to in ways that queens would never respond. But right now, this morning, in the space of the episode's first act, the operation is working. The war is about to make it much harder. Into Breeze's spot, South Jamaica. Same morning, the war that the official episode synopsis describes, Raquel's war with Kanan, Breeze, and Stefano, growing increasingly violent, begins to earn that description in the first 20 minutes of this episode. The shot that comes in the early morning is not directed at Kanan. It is directed at someone adjacent to him, someone in the orbit of the Breeze operation, someone whose removal sends a message without yet being the opening move of an all-out conflict. This is how these things start in this world, not with declarations, not with a moment where someone clearly draws a line and announces that the war has begun. They start with something that can still technically be explained away. Something that could, if everyone agreed to look at it a certain way, be called a coincidence. Nobody in South Jamaica believes in coincidences. Kanan receives the news of the morning's violence with the expression that has been his dominant expression this season, the expression that replaced the one he used to have, the one that still had some visible relationship to feeling something, with this new thing. Flatter, more controlled. The face of someone who has decided that the distance between what he feels and what he shows is an asset he intends to maintain. He goes to Breeze. The conversation between them is the kind of conversation that the show does better than almost anything else it does. The kind that is conducted entirely in the language of the game, where everything being said is also saying something else, where the subtext is not hidden, but exists simultaneously with the text, where two people who are operating in the same world at the same level speak to each other with a shorthand that has taken the whole season to build. Breeze asks what he wants to do. What Kanan wants to do and what Kanan says he wants to do are not quite the same thing. Not yet. He is still in the phase of this episode where the calculation is running and the answer has not fully resolved. But the direction of the answer is visible. The direction of the answer has been visible since Stefano sat across from him in episode 3 and used the word handle about his mother. Handle. It is the word that this episode keeps returning to. In different registers, through different mouths, in different contexts. Who handles what? Who can be handled and by whom? What it costs to handle something and what it costs not to. Interior. Bar. Marvin's operation. Afternoon Jukebox is behind the bar. She is doing the work she agreed to do when Garcia named his price. She is watching. She is present in a space that gives her access to information she would not otherwise have, and she is carrying that access with the particular care of someone who understands that being useful to Garcia while protecting her family requires a precision of navigation that leaves no room for mistakes. She makes a mistake in this episode. The nature of the mistake is something the show handles with its characteristic commitment to not making things simple. It is not a mistake born from carelessness or from poor judgment. It is a mistake born from the particular impossibility of her position, from the fact that the only way to protect herself from Garcia is to give him something. And the only things she has to give him are things that belong to people she loves. And every time she gives him something, she moves one step closer to the moment when the thing she gives him is the thing she cannot take back. Marvin finds out, not the full extent of it. Not yet, but enough. And the look on Marvin's face, the particular combination of hurt and rage and the specific devastation of a parent who has discovered that the child they thought they were protecting has been operating inside a danger they did not know about, is one of the most fully realized pieces of acting this episode asks of this cast, and it delivers. Jukebox under threat means something different this season than it has in previous seasons, because the audience is always watching her with the foreknowledge written into the bones of this prequel, that she and Kanan will end in the most final way possible, that the boy who is becoming the man will become the man, capable of that ending. And so every threat that comes to her in the present is threaded with the future. Every danger she survives in 1991 is a danger survived on the way to the one she will not survive. Watching her navigate this is watching something that breaks your heart, even when nothing has broken yet. Interior Stefano's meeting, undisclosed location. Evening. Stefano Mancini is a man who has never had to absorb a humiliation quietly before. Joe Pantoliano, who brought something genuinely unexpected to this role when he joined the cast this season, plays this man with the specific intelligence of a performer who understands that the most dangerous people are not the ones who show you their danger. He plays Stefano as someone who has spent decades in rooms where the decisions were made by being the person in the room who never needed to raise his voice, who never needed to make a threat explicit because the implicit threat was always sufficient, who has moved through the power structure of organized crime in New York with the confidence of someone who has never seriously considered the possibility that the structure might not accommodate him. And then, Rack Thomas found a loophole. The meeting in this episode is not with the people you would expect. It is with Pino, the other head of the mafia operation, who made it clear in episode 3 that as far as he is concerned, Rack bringing business into Manhattan is fine. The business is good. The money is real. And Pino does not share Stefano's particular investment in the politics of who gets to operate where. This difference between the two men is the pressure point that Stefano is now navigating. He cannot move against Rack without going around Pino. Going around Pino has consequences of its own. What he decides in this episode is to make Kanan the move. Not directly, not in a way that can be tracked back to him in any straightforward sense. But the pressure he applies, the specific targeted pressure of a man who knows exactly which lever to pull and how hard, lands in a way that Kanan, already running his own calculation about his mother, receives as confirmation of a decision he was already close to making. This is how the game works. Nobody makes anyone do anything. They just arrange the circumstances until the thing they want is the thing that makes sense. Exterior. Queens. Night. Tiana. The deception escalates. This is the language the official synopsis uses. Kanan's deception of Tiana escalates. It is precise language. It does not say Kanan uses Tiana. It says the deception escalates, which puts the emphasis where the show is putting it. Not on the outcome, but on the process. Not on what Tiana is being used for, but on the increasingly wide gap between what Kanan is showing her and what is actually happening. Tiana is inside the Rock Flossie operation. She has access. She is positioned to give Kanan information that he can use to do what Stefano is pressuring him to do, which is damage his mother's ability to operate. And she does not know any of this. She knows the young man who found her. She knows the version of him that he has chosen to show her, which contains enough of something real to function as genuine. Because Kanan has always been most dangerous when he is most convincing. And he is most convincing when some part of what he is showing you is actually there. The escalation in this episode is the moment when the gap between what Tiana believes and what is true becomes wide enough that it can no longer be closed. When the information she gives him, innocent on her side, catastrophic on the side of what it will be used for, crosses a threshold that makes what he is doing to her something he cannot undo. The show does not look away from this. It sits in it. It makes you sit in it. This is the work of becoming the man who kills Jukebox, broken down into its smallest components. Not a single dramatic transformation. 100 smaller ones, each of them looking, from close enough, like something that could still go a different way. And then looking, from further out, like exactly what it always was. Interior. Kanan's apartment. Late night. The final act of this episode belongs to the silence. There is a scene. Late, after everything else, after the violence and the meetings and the deception, and Jukebox's mistake, and Marvin's face, where Kanan sits alone in the apartment, and the camera stays with him, and he does not do anything. He does not make a call. He does not move toward the next thing. He just sits. This is the scene that this series has been building across 5 seasons and 19 previous episodes. The scene of what it actually looks like to be inside the process of becoming someone who has decided to remove from himself the things that would make the worst choices impossible. Not in a dramatic moment of decision. Not in a scene of explicit turning away from something good. In a quiet apartment in South Jamaica, Queens, in 1991, at whatever hour this hour is. He is 19 years old. He has survived things that most people his age have not survived. He has lost the one person in his world who existed outside the game. And he is sitting in his apartment, and somewhere in the architecture of his face, in the set of his eyes, in the particular quality of stillness that Mackay Curtis has built into this performance across 5 seasons, something is visible that will not be there in the episodes that follow. The last of something. Not innocence. That was gone earlier. Not even the capacity for doubt entirely, but the last of whatever it is that sits between a person and their worst self and says, "Not yet." It is going away, and the show is watching it go. Exit South Jamaica. Rooftop. Pre-dawn. The city below. The episode closes on the rooftop the way this season has been closing episodes, with height and distance, the camera pulling back to the wide shot of Queens in the dark, the grid of streets that this story has been mapping across 5 years of television, the corners and the blocks and the operations and the alliances all reduced from this height to light and geometry. Rock's war with Kanan, Breeze, and Stefano has grown increasingly violent. That is the official synopsis. 3 sentences, clean and direct, doing what these synopses do, telling you what happens without telling you what it means. What it means is layered across this entire episode, in the violence that was and the violence that is coming, in Jukebox under threat, in Tiana not yet knowing what she is inside of, in Taz's resentment finding its first visible outlet, in Stefano's humiliation converting itself into pressure that will produce consequences no one in this episode is fully anticipating. The board is different at the end of this episode than it was at the beginning. That is always true of the best episodes of this show. The board is always different. The pieces have always moved. And the distance between where Kanan Stark is now and where he ends up, in the original power, in the story already told, in the future that this prequel has been building toward since 2021, is always, at the end of every episode, a little shorter than it was at the start.